If you've ever said, I perform best under pressure, this video is for you. Because high performers do not burn out from working too hard. They burn out from mistaking a nervous system addiction for a strength. And the most dangerous part? You won't see this coming because the dopamine system degrades silently for months, sometimes years, until one day it just stops working. Let me tell you what's actually happening when you say that phrase. I thrive under pressure. It sounds like confidence. It feels like a strength. And in most professional environments, it is also rewarded. In this video, we are going to map out what's going on underneath that statement. Hi, and welcome back to this channel. I am Vibhuti, your performance and authority coach and trainer. I believe that authority is not personality. It's a nervous system training to build capacity. And that's exactly what we do together on this channel. When pressure arrives, your nervous system activates. You take action, you produce the output, you get the results. And then you tell yourself, see, I work best under pressure. But that last step, that's not insight. That's actually an identity lock-in. You're not observing a strength. You are reinforcing a dependency, an addiction. And the more you reinforce it, the more your system will demand for pressure to take any action. This is the loop most leaders are running. It's a pressure-sourced motivation system. And the thing is, it actually works. Now you might be thinking, but I do thrive under pressure. And that's just a fact. And you are right, you do. But here's what you are missing. Why you do produce under pressure. Is it because you are optimizing your system or because your system has learned that tension is the only condition under which it functions, it produces? There is a neurochemical pattern happening underneath it that most leaders do not see. And that's why burnout feels so sudden when it arrives. Here's what's happening neurologically. Your brain has two pathways for action. Pathway 1 is threat-based activation. This is the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, high adrenaline, high cortisol. When a deadline appears, your brain perceives it as threat. Not a physical threat, but a status threat, a failure threat, an identity threat. And your nervous system responds the way it's designed to. It mobilizes all the energy. You get a dopamine spike in anticipation of resolving a threat. Your attention will sharpen. Your decision making speeds up. You feel more alive. And then you act. And you get the results. And dopamine delivers again. This is why pressure feels good. Then there is pathway 2, which is purpose-based activation. This is led by the prefrontal cortex and engages the parasympathetic nervous system. It's calm, it's steady, it doesn't spike dopamine, it sustains it. It doesn't require threat. It requires clarity and meaning. But here's the problem. If you have spent years training your brain to believe that action only happens under threat, then this second pathway atrophies. It freezes. It's locked away. Not permanently, but functionally. You don't have access to it. Your brain stops trusting that you'll ever take action without threat. So it stops trying to activate you any other way. And now you have created a dependency, an addiction. Your brain has learned only threat generates action. And as this loop keeps on repeating, your brain learns, I can only function under crisis. That's not a badge of honor. That's a danger sign you're carrying on your chest all the time. It's a nervous system dependency that we also sometimes call as work ethic. I'm going to show you a system that explains why this happens to high performers specifically and why standard self-care does not work. Now, I know what you're thinking, but I've always been this way. It's just the way I am. I used to think like this too. Let me show you why that's not true. Here is how stress-dopamine loop degrades over time. In the beginning, when you resolve pressure, your brain expects a dopamine reward. And it also gets it. The gap is small. The system works. You feel good after achieving under pressure. We've all been there. But here is what happens with repeated cycles. Your brain keeps expecting the same dopamine hit, but your actual dopamine response goes down because chronic stress depletes your dopamine baseline and your brain adapts. It becomes less responsive to reward. Now, there is a gap between expectation and actual dopamine. This is called predictive error zone. Your brain predicted resolving this will feel good. But the reality is, I feel nothing. Or worse, I feel completely exhausted. And the wider this gap gets, the closer you are to burnout. Because your brain is now operating in a chronic prediction error. It keeps on trying the same strategy. More pressure is equal to more dopamine. But that strategy is now failing. And eventually, the system collapses. And here's the part that most leaders miss. This isn't a willpower problem. It's a neurochemistry problem, which means standard self-care advice completely misses the point. This is why high performers burn out suddenly. But actually, it's not sudden. It's been happening over years. We just haven't seen it. This is because the prediction error is invisible, and we will not be able to see the results until the system fails completely. I have watched this pattern break in 3 predictable stages. Stage 1 is the honeymoon stage. Early career, high achievers, thrive in pressure. Deadlines feel energizing. Challenges feel motivating. Stress feels like flow. And it is neurochemically because the dopamine system is still responsive. This is the stage we start telling ourselves, I perform best under pressure. This is my strength. And everyone around us agrees because the results are undeniable. Stage 2 is escalation. Mid-career, senior roles, more responsibility, more stakes, more pressure. But now the same level of pressure doesn't activate them as it used to. So they take on more, say yes to more, create more urgency. Not because they want to, but because they need to create the same activation. They start working longer hours, sleeping less, dropping boundaries, and they justify it to themselves. This is just what it takes at this level. But what's actually happening is dopamine tolerance escalation. They need more stress to generate the same neurochemical response. In stage 3, the collapse happens. They hit a wall, not gradually, suddenly. They wake up one day, Tuesday, normal day, nothing different, except they can't get out of bed. They're not just tired, not sad, it's much deeper. It's emptiness. Suddenly, nothing works. No amount of pressure generates motivation. No deadline generates urgency. They feel exhausted, empty, disconnected, and they don't understand why this is happening because they are doing everything that used to work in the past. But the motivation system isn't responding anymore. This is burnout, and it goes deeper than tiredness. It feels like a neurochemical failure because that's exactly what it is. If you are in stage 1, you won't believe that this applies to you. If you are in stage 2, you will see it, but you will believe that you can manage it. If you are in stage 3, you already know. In Vedic philosophy, there is a concept called rajas, the quality of activation, movement, and intensity. Rajas is very useful. It's the force that drives action, ambition, and creation. But Rajas has a shadow. It's addictive because Rajas feels like energy. It feels like aliveness. It feels like power. But Rajas is not sustainable. It's inherently unstable. It constantly needs to be fed. It needs something to push against constantly. And when you build your entire operating system on Rajas, you enter something Vedic science calls Rajasic addiction. You're not addicted to work. You're addicted to the activation state that work creates. And the more you rely on it, the more you will need it until your body and mind cannot sustain it. This is what Ayurvedic science calls Vata Pitta aggravation, the burnout that comes from chronic overactivation. The path out isn't to stop working, it's actually to stop sourcing your energy from crisis. And that requires learning to activate from sattva, which is clarity, stillness, and purpose instead of rajas. So here is what I want you to understand. If you are a high performer, you are not immune from burnout. You're actually more vulnerable to it because you have trained your nervous system to associate performance with pressure. And your brain has in turn learned to require stress to take any action. This is not a lack of resilience per se, it's a neurochemical dependency which was created from repeated loops and reinforced by results. And the hardest part, even for me to accept, was the thing that made you successful, your ability to thrive under pressure, is the same thing that will take you to burnout. Not because it's wrong, but because it's unsustainable. You cannot build a long term leadership career on short term activation. You cannot lead others from a nervous system that requires crisis to function. And you cannot embody authority when your baseline state is depleted. I teach frameworks like this and systems based on these to leaders who are committed to their growth and are willing to invest in it. If you are interested, the link to my course is in the bio. This isn't about working less or about lowering your standards. This is about changing the source of your motivation from stress sourced to purpose sourced. And that's not just possible, it's trainable. If this pattern feels familiar, the next video provides a system that will help you in rebuilding your motivation system from the ground up. Watch it when you are ready to rebuild. Thank you for watching this video and see you in the next one.